was like before I became seriously ill. I want them to remember me in this way after my death. And so in that spirit, we gathered this afternoon to celebrate the life of Lynn Simons, who loved and taught, studied, learned, worked, and conspired with so many of you. You know who you are. Many of you are here today. Others have gone on to whatever is next ahead of Lynn to await her arrival. All were lovers of justice and good books, intellectually curious with the courage to teach others, whether in a classroom or a living room. For those of you I may not have met, my name is Roger McDaniel. I had the good fortune to be Lynn's pastor at Highlands Presbyterian Church these last many years. And before that, she and I were friends for nearly half a century. On behalf of her son, Bill, and granddaughter, Madeline, and other members of the family, I want to welcome you here today and to thank you for coming to recognize the life of this extraordinary woman.
Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore.
Let us be still in the presence of God as we pray. To the God of our lives and the God of our deaths, from the moment of our birth to our last breath, we live amidst the wonder and beauty of all life and marvel at the gift of what it means to be fully human, fully alive. And today we particularly thank you for the gift of Lynn Simons' life, a gift of love and honest, genuine relationships. From our beloved Lynn, we learned we are always teaching, that for good or bad, someone is always learning something from us in every encounter, and that in all pursuits, we have a sacred obligation to endeavor to teach truth. You, O Lord, have taught us that for everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, and a time to celebrate the seasons of our lives, knowing that each has its own meaning and purpose. Ever-present God, we ask that you receive our prayers. Amen. If you're comfortable in doing so, please stand and join in singing Amazing Grace. The lyrics are in the program and on page 546 of the hymnal in front of you.
I was Fidelity by Grace Paley. After supper, I returned to my reading book. I had reached page 140, 220 more to go. I had been thinking that evening, as we spoke, of the dense, improbable life of that book in which I had become so comfortable. The characters were now my troubled companions. I knew them, understood I could re-enter their lives without loss. So firm my habitation, I scanned the shelves. Some books so dear to me, I had missed them. Leaned forward to take the work into my hands. I took a couple of deep breaths, thought about the acceleration of days. Yes, I could re-enter them, but no, how could I desert the other whole life? Those others in their city basements, abandonment. How could I have allowed myself even thought of a half-hour's distraction when life had pages or decades to go? So much about to happen to people I already know and almost love.
I would invite you to take a few moments, if you haven't, to read the obituary that Lynn's son Bill lovingly wrote and included in the program today. You know, I'm thinking Lynn would not object that the celebration of her life happened to be on the same day as tens of thousands of people around the country are marching in No King's rallies. It's a statement that can be made here as we remember her life as effectively as on the streets 2 blocks away. Taking time on this day to celebrate Lynn's life is to remember her commitment to truth and justice. Itself a recognition that neither kings nor dictators, but instead public education has the power to secure our future as a free people. Lynn's obituary begins, Lynn Simons, 1934-2025. Think about the meaning of that little dash that separates the year of her birth from the year of her death. It represents 91 years. From some of the great victories of our democracy, including overcoming the Great Depression and prevailing in the Second World War, through the Cold War and the atomic age to the computer age, the assassinations of the Kennedys and Martin Luther King, the civil rights movement and the women's movement and the environmental movement, the man on the moon, Vietnam and Watergate, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the decline of American democracy. During these momentous events, Lynn lived her life fully, watching and learning and thinking about what it takes to keep a country and its people free. Lynn's life was extraordinarily American. She was a public servant, elected 3 times to serve as Wyoming's superintendent of public instruction. Her commitment to public education set a standard for competence and connectedness to the hopes and dreams of educators, students, and their families. Our beloved Lynn will be remembered as a teacher, an educator who cared deeply about the integrity of the human mind and the ability of an educated person to make a difference in the world. The seminary I attended believed that preaching was mostly about teaching, and so it offered a course entitled The Courage to Teach, taught by Parker Palmer, who is one of America's great visionary thinkers in education. Palmer told his students, quote, "No teacher will have much effect until their soul consents to teach. A good educator," he said, "projects the condition of their soul onto students and parents and fellow educators. Good educators have an extraordinary capacity for connectedness, and the best ones are able to pass that capacity on to their students." Lynn's students, her fellow teachers and educators with whom she worked at every level, would tell you that Lynn's soul was that of a teacher. Whether she was in the classroom or at the Wyoming Department of Education, or taking part in a church book study, or sitting around the table at Uncle Charlie's for Bibles and beer, she had a soul endowed with the purpose and the ability of connecting with others. In 1982, Lynn and I were candidates running for office. She was running for re-election to head the education department. I was running for the United States Senate. And each time our paths crossed on the campaign trail, Lynn would hand me a book she thought I should read, or an article from the New York Times, or one of the dozens of magazines she read. Things she thought I should learn. And I always wondered if she thought I had the ability to learn. She was always teaching. And nearly 40 years later, Lynn became a member of Highlands Presbyterian Church, the church I pastored, and every Sunday she would bring me a book she thought I should read, or an article from the New York Times, or one of the dozens of magazines she read. Things, again, she thought I should learn. Raise your hand if you had that experience. Yeah. That's who she was. Always a teacher. Lynn had that extraordinary capacity for connectedness and graciously used that gift to enhance the lives and education of students, whether they were young people in her classroom or friends in her living room. Lynn said she would like to be remembered as a person who stood up and mattered for something. If you think she succeeded, can I get an amen? Amen. Her love of books and learning mattered, as did her love of teaching and her love of family, of life, and friends. We all knew who she was and what she stood for, which was truth and decency and a deep abiding belief that we are put on this earth to help the least of these. No one who spent any time with her could avoid the connectedness of her soul. And believe me, we will all miss that. Her son Bill prepared these remarks for me to read during the service. Bill wrote, "In April of 2024, I was devoted to caring for my old disabled dog, Bella, carrying her for walks in a converted baby stroller, and carrying her outside to pee. I had recently read an excerpt from Tommy Tomlinson's book, Dogland, where he describes sitting at his mother's bedside in her final hours, touching her face but not crying, in stark contrast to the open weeping he and his wife shared 2 years earlier when their old dog was put to sleep. Tomlinson asked himself why he cried for the dog, but not for his mom, realizing that grief for a person is complicated, tangled up with memory, history, and everything unsaid. Tomlinson said, by any measure, I love my mom more than our dog. If I could bring one back, I'd pick her 100 times out of 100. So why, in the moment of their passing, did I cry for the dog, but not for her? End quote. Or he continued, when we mourn a human, our emotions are messier. That does not make our grief lesser. It makes it part of a bigger experience, like an egg mixed into batter. At some point, you can no longer separate it out. End quote. At the time, I thought that's probably how I'd feel. Watching me with my dog, my mom once said, I hope you take care of me in my old age as well as you took care of Bella. Just over a year later, I was carrying Mom, if not quite carrying her outside to pee. And now that she has died, I feel more grief than I had imagined. And it arrives in complicated ways. By any measure, she was a remarkable woman, a true friend, an optimist who believed we could always make things better in our own lives and in the lives of others. She was a person of ambition and intelligence, possessing the obstinate drive to accomplish things. Her stubborn self-assurance, however, sometimes made it difficult to be herself. She was not one to doubt her instincts or her ways of doing things. I suppose we all live in this world of our own making, and seeing outside ourselves is sometimes difficult. By all measures, she was a great mother. She was loving and completely committed to her children. I have fond memories of our family outings when we were young. We would drive up Garden Creek Road in Casper and collect watercress from the stream. Many Thursday nights would start a sourdough pancake mix that we would cook on Casper Mountain on Saturday morning, a tradition we continue at Beatable as we grew older. I owe her my familiarity with the kitchen and with cooking. She always gave us chores during meal preparation and encouraged Clay and me to cook on our own. Nothing was forbidden, so long as we cleaned up after ourselves. She was pathologically organized. I don't know why, that's just the way she was. It was a revelation to me when I finally learned that you really could throw things in a junk drawer and simply not worry about it. In her meticulously labeled collection of papers, the only ones that were out of place were the documents related to the deaths of her son Clay and her husband John. This most subtle indication reveals how devastating the loss of her son and her husband of 61 years truly was to her. She was as stoic as she was stubborn, and I learned from her that all you can do is face each day one at a time and carry on as best you can. This is the toughness of a daughter of a boy who spent days plowing fields behind a mule, and a mother who lost her own mother at a young age and weathered the Great Depression as a young mother herself. Her goodness truly shone when she was helping you with your problems. Several of her friends mentioned this explicitly to me, and I experienced it myself when I was getting a divorce. She was able to listen intently and not offer just advice, but especially suggest helpful books or ideas. This humble intelligence endeared her to those who received it. One moment from just a few moments ago sticks out with me. I had grown frustrated trying to explain that the half-dream or dementia confused with reality wasn't true. I finally gave up and huffed out. A day later, she sat me down and told me she didn't want us to be mad at each other. I tried to explain that I wasn't really mad, just frustrated, But she continued to insist that we bury the hatchet and move on. Even when she was not fully herself, her natural instinct was to connect with me. I don't know why. That's just the way she was. Another time she described her own mixed feelings when she had been taking care of her elderly father. Even incapacitated as she was, she felt bad that I was in the same position. And my reply was always the same. Whenever she or anyone praised me, I was not doing anything for her that I would not have done for me. Bill, thank you for those gracious words and the courage it took to write them and share them today with the people who have come to celebrate your mother's life. Lynn once wrote, "If anyone asks how I want to be remembered, please say the following: beauty and order, poetry and music, friendship." She wrote, "I wish to have my family and friends know that I love them." Lynn said she wished to be forgiven for the times, quote, "I have hurt my family, friends, or others." When Lynn was just 17 years old, she wrote a paper about her hopes for a spiritual life. She said, "I want to be of help to mankind. Perhaps I shall be the mother of seeds of little boys, or a teacher, maybe a doctor among African natives, or a research scientist. If I am of some good to someone somewhere, I will have achieved my spiritual accomplishment." Well, Lynn achieved her spiritual accomplishment. A good educator, a good friend, a good wife, a good mother and grandmother, welcomed into the arms of a loving God with the reward for a life well lived.
'cause the welcome will not end. Though it's hard to let you go, in the Father's hands we know that a lifetime's not too long. No, a lifetime's not too long to live as friends.
Looking out across the sanctuary today, I see a lot of people who knew Lynn in various ways. And I want to invite you to share your stories. We'll take a few minutes to, if you'd like to come up here and use the microphone, or if you'd like to speak from your seat, that would be fine. But I know that Bill and Maddie, the family, would enjoy the opportunity to hear some of the stories of her lifetime of relationships with people across a lot of different sectors of friendship in life. Anybody like to begin? I don't see it. Just, if you want to stand up, or if you want to come up to here, that's up here, that's fine. Sure. All right.
Lynn was just this fabulous friend to so many of us. And I know I'm going to cry, so I tend to have a hard time thinking about not seeing her when I walk down the street and not being able to benefit from all of her wisdom and all of her love. So I'm going to try to share a little bit about my story with Lynn. And it started when I worked in the health department. And Lynn's office was upstairs, just one floor. And I used to take a break from work, and Lynn didn't know I was coming, but I'd zip upstairs, and she'd always wave me in. And she was busy. She was the superintendent of public instruction. But she'd wave me in. She had this wonderful conversation kept in her office. And I'd sit there, and I would visit with her. And I can't remember everything we talked about, but I remember how she made me feel. And it was always understood, it was always encouraged, it was always just terrific. And I would leave feeling better about everything. Then I went to work for this last Board of Charities and Reform. And this was a fabulous job. And during that time, I was able to observe Lynn in her service as a member of that 5 board of elected officials. And what I witnessed from her then was remarkable, because she came to every meeting knowing the issues. She asked the most penetrating questions. She participated with those other 4 elected officials as a member of a team, and they collaborated. And she always influenced the decision, and she always was voting for a policy change that was in the interest of the people that she served. She was a fabulous example to all of us who had the opportunity to work with her. Now, I lost touch with her because I lived out of the community that she was in, but then I had the great fortune of her moving down the street from me. So very easy for me now on a morning walk to pop in and to see Lynn. So for the last year of her life, she became one of the most important people in my world. She was a blessing beyond words. She consistently would say to me in those last 6 months especially, "Oh, Sherry, can you believe my son? He moved home, he's taking care of me, he takes care of business, he does everything." And I would say, "Yes, Lynn, I see that." She would say that nearly every time. And I don't know if Jenny's out there, but she loved Jenny. Jenny was her assistant, her aide that came in at home. And she valued Jenny. Jenny had a gift. She knew how to deal with Lynn, and she didn't fight with her, but she had the diplomacy, the ability to just work with her smoothly. And she made a huge difference in Lynn's life in the last year. So what I would say, maybe just to wrap up, in the last year of Lynn's life, she became my family. You're my family now. I'm so thankful, Joe, that you stayed. And I'm so thankful that you're here and that I've gotten to meet you. You had such a remarkable mother, such a remarkable aunt, such a remarkable grandmother. And how lucky you were, and how lucky all of us were to have her in our lives. And thank you, Roger, for such a beautiful message.
Who else would like to share? Mary? Hi, Mary.
I had the joy of knowing Lynn when she was newly elected as superintendent of public instructions, and I was a new lawyer. Now, I wasn't a young lawyer, but I knew nothing about the education department. And so in comes this wonderfully self-confident woman whom I had never met, and she said, well, it's good to know you. And she said, the first thing we have to do is sue the state. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, the way of financing education is not fair, and there are other states that have that. And I said, well, you're probably right. Now, she knew far more about education law than I ever knew. And I said, but I must tell you something, Mrs. Simons. You can't sue yourself. So then from that professional relationship, I was able to develop a wonderful friendship. She was the godmother of a book group that I still go to faithfully. And then, this shows how with it Lynn was. When we first had the COVID crisis, the COVID vaccine was only available to people who had some relationship with a doctor at the hospital. So Lynn was using UC Health, and several of us were not affiliated with a doctor at the hospital. So she found out from her pharmacist that we could all get vaccinated. So the very first day that we could get vaccinated at Albertsons, I'm sure Lynn and I called at least 20 or 30 people. So we all cherish our friendships and our relationships with Lynn.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else? Bob?
I'm one of the pastors that goes to Highlands. It's a place for homeless pastors. And always welcome there. And Lynn was one of the ones who welcomed me. And when I would preach, she'd talk to me afterwards about the sermon. And we spoke about books and articles. Well, she let me know sometimes when I was growing in my preaching. I've been preaching for about 45, 50 years. Or what she really liked about the illustrations that were in the sermon, or how it spoke to her. But I got an honest opinion from her whenever I would preach. And I really appreciated that. And it was so great to see her in church. I mean, she was so faithful coming as long as she possibly could. And the other thing is, she likes Subarus, and we own 7 Subarus, so we got to talk about Subarus, and that was fun to do that with her. But she was a fun woman, an honest woman, a woman of great faith, and it was a joy to know her and gain knowledge from what she had to share.
Thank you, Bob.
of knowing Lynn from when I was in high school. The thing is, I didn't know that she knew me. I knew her from a distance, but she was very good friends with Glenn DeLeet, and I was in a vocal singing group, and that Glenn was the director. And unbeknownst to me, Lynn came to performances and came to see me in plays. And when I then became a teacher, she was the one who reached out and became my lifelong mentor. Throughout my teaching career, Lynn and I had regular contact with each other, and I was very fortunate to work on her campaigns for 4 different elections. At the time, I was living in Wheatland, and so I was the campaign manager for 3 counties. So Lynn would come to my house and stay. One night, she had come to stay, we were campaigning, and she was exhausted. And so she knew she had a guest room in my house, and she put herself to bed. Well, the next morning, I was up early, and in she comes holding my daughter's hand, my little, I think Liam was, 3 at the time. And my daughter had slept with Lynn all night. And I was kind of horrified. And Lynn said, "Best night's sleep I've had in years." As the years went by, Lynn and I continued to keep contact. We had coffee often with both your mom and your dad, sometimes on the Saturdays. She was always just such an inspiration to me, sharing books, sharing faith. Sometimes I would just get random phone calls from her with, "Oh, have you read this? Have you seen this? Have you shared this?" And well, I mean, everyone here had a special relationship with her. She always made me feel like our friendship mattered. And we didn't spend hours and hours together like some people, but she was always just a phone call away. And I loved her dearly. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
I'm not sure when I first met Lynn, probably through the League of Women Voters, which was the first thing I did once I arrived here in Cheyenne in 1979. But I really got to spend some time with Lynn at the symphony, because Lynn and John sat right behind my husband and I. And when Clay died, Lynn said to us, well, actually, I guess said to my husband, "You're a really big guy. Clay is big. We have this wonderful wool shirt that would be too bad if it wasn't worn. Would you like it?" And today, my husband is wearing that shirt. And every time he wears that shirt, which because it's wool, we always have to dry clean, I feel so close to her. And it's such an honor to have that shirt. But I also learned something about Lynn today that I wish I'd known earlier, that she likes Subarus. Because I drive a 1999 Subaru Impreza with about 157,000 miles on it. And we could have really had fun with those conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Jason?
It's Roger's fault that Lynn met me. Let's start with that. Put the blame where it belongs. This was through Bibles in Europe. And one of the things that I remember the most about Lynn is this sense of constant curiosity. There are people who look at something and they'll go, "Oh, I've read this before." I've seen this before. One of the things we try to do is try to see if we can get a fresh view of ancient texts and how it relates to our life now. Lynn was not shy about sharing her reactions to these texts, and we are all richer for it. One of the things I would do from time to time is discuss the perspective of text from my understanding of Hebrew. And this morning, you recited part of Psalm 121. So I would like to share this in Hebrew, which I did at Bibles and Beer one time when we were studying it. And I think Lynn liked being able to hear it. Shamayim ve'aretz Ezri me'im Hashem Osei shamayim ve'aretz.
Jason, thank you for that. Any others?
My parents knew Lynn before I did, but I met her when I was pretty young, probably around his age. And we became friendlier after I moved back to Cheyenne in the late 80s. And many people have talked about being the recipients of Lynn's book suggestions. and so I'm going to give a little story of my interaction with her and books. During one of my periods of retirement from the college here, I worked for Barnes & Noble during Christmas breaks, Christmas rush, and the summer. And one day, well, Lynn was in often when I was there, but one day we fell into chit-chatting, and she had said, "Do you know where this book is that I'd like to buy?" And I said, "Yes." And we talked a little more, and I said, "Oh, you know, you'd also like this other book over here." And she said, "Oh, yeah, maybe I should get that one too." And so as she was headed for the checkout counter later, she said, "You know, I came in here for one book, and now I have a dozen. I'm not talking to you anymore."
It was your fault. Thanks, Kathleen. Anyone else? Well, after the service, we'll have time for sharing with the family and know that they would be uplifted by stories that you might tell during the reception next door here. But if you're able, please stand and let's all sing together. "Morning is Broken." The lyrics are in the program and in the hymnal at page 53. close with the words of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. My friends, leave this day celebrating the life of Lynn Simons, confident that she will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. On behalf of the family, I want to invite you again to the reception in the room next door. I also want to thank Gary Smith, the pastor here at First Christian, for the use of this facility, and recognize Delaney Piper, who is the current pastor at Highlands Presbyterian. Thank you for coming, Delaney. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to a time of sharing at the reception immediately after. If you would allow the family to leave the sanctuary first,